In 2015, you wrote a research paper, Issues in the Prevention of Malaria Among Women at War, and I and my colleagues look forward to hearing your findings that can have significant implications, as we're hearing, on the health care of Canadian female military service members today. However, I think it's really important for the current members of this committee to also know the concerns of our armed forces with the anti-malarial drug mefloquine, which has been the required drug of first resort for Canadian Armed Forces members in the last 3 decades, both men and women. In 1992, on a deployment to Somalia, Canada's elite airborne paratroopers received the then unlicensed drug as a part of a drug study. Military personnel were told they must take the drug or face disciplinary actions. Very clear protocols were set forth, yet few, if any, were followed by either the DND or Health Canada. Although administered, no proper testing was done or results attained. January 93, Health Canada, in advance of its own research being completed, approved the drug for civilian use in Canada. 3 months later, a young Somalia boy is murdered on a Canadian base in Somalia. This event would later become known as the Somali Affair. After the 93 federal election, Jean Chrétien's Liberal Party initiated a highly visible inquiry. However, a year later in 94, just as data was being collected on the role mefloquine played in the event, the Chrétien government abruptly shut down the inquiry just ahead of the 1997 election. This report, the 1997 Somali Inquiry Report, should be read by all members of this committee. The abrupt shutdown was questioned in 1999 at the Standing Committee on Public Accounts when former MP John Cummings states that he was in personal possession of an October 97 departmental note to the Defence Minister advising the DND to mislead the Somali inquiry on the status of mefloquine and advising him to mislead the public as to where the DND got the drug. While the Liberal government continued its cover-up, ignoring its veterans while requiring service members to continue to take mefloquine, the U.S. military responded to the Fort Bragg murder-suicides of 2002, in which 4 military wives were killed, and 2 of the partners that killed them then committed suicide. There was research into the potential impact of mefloquine on those partners who were required to consume mefloquine while in Afghanistan. So, Dr. Nevin, I have 2 questions that I'll put together for you. What was the 2009 decision made by the U.S. military because of their research? And we know that many of our other allies were also using mefloquine at this time. And in response to the U.S. decision, I believe, they held inquiries of their own that responded to the concerns of their veterans. So just wondering if you're aware what other countries made changes to the use of this drug within their forces and what did they do specifically? So if you could succinctly respond to that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I thank the member for the question. So the members, I believe, referring to the 2009 policy decision that was made by the U.S. Army. And I believe that was in response to some research that I had published that had demonstrated that the drug had been used improperly on a large scale, particularly in Afghanistan. The drug had been prescribed to service members, the growing number of service members with mental health contraindications. And I think the U.S. Army was quite happy to dispense with use of the drug. It had developed, by that point, plenty of experience with the drug's very unpleasant and dangerous adverse effects. And the rest of the U.S. military followed subsequently. By 2013, when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration had mandated a boxed warning on the mefloquine product insert. By that time, the U.S. military had issued a policy that mefloquine be essentially a drug of last resort only, and that the 2 drugs that I had referenced previously, atovaquone proguanil and doxycycline, be used primarily and in almost all circumstances. And I believe the Canadian military, by this point, had also moved away from mefloquine as a first-line drug, as did militaries around the world. So I recall when I was overseas, I spoke with some French officers, and this was in the mid-2000s, and they had long since abandoned use of mefloquine because of operational experience with very unpleasant side effects of some operational significance associated with the drug. Germany, I believe, completely banned use of the drug in their military around the time of our boxed warning. And essentially few countries, if any, make any significant use of mefloquine today. The drug remains on many formularies. It may be used by old-timers that have favorable experiences with the drug, but it would be very unusual for new troops to be issued a mefloquine on deployments today.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nevin, it was your research that brought new hope to Canadian veterans and serving members who've been suffering with a physical brainstem injury due to mefloquine toxicity while being told that their issues and prescribed treatments were due to PTSD. You testified at this committee on May 1st, 2019, along with several Canadian veterans injured by mefloquine, contributing to our study and our report on the effects of mefloquine use among Canadian veterans. And of course, that report in the 42nd Parliament is available, report number 14. And the Conservative Party of Canada also submitted a supplementary report. Can you please share the eventual changes and your perspective on the changes Health Canada and the Surgeon General Commander, Canadian Armed Forces Health Services, made in 2016 regarding the use of mefloquine in Canada after a significant amount of challenge at this committee and also from veterans?
Excuse me, Dr. Nevin, I only give you 20 seconds.
Okay, that's
Sorry
fine.
to get the response. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say what's missing from those reports is an acknowledgement of the most important thing with mefloquine, and that is that the use of the drug must be discontinued at the onset of psychiatric symptoms. And it's this critical warning that I think has been ignored and still hasn't been acknowledged by Canadian officials.